I've recently shot some videos giving a bit of a summary of some of the policies that are being proposed by each prime ministerial candidate. And one of the things that I didn't touch on was the possibility of capital gains exemptions or capital gains deferrals being proposed by the Conservative Party. The way that it works now is that if I were to sell a property of mine, let's say a rental property, then the proceeds from that sale, the gain that I've seen from the purchase price all the way to the sale price, will get taxed at 50%, and I pay a capital gains tax. What the Conservatives have proposed is that if I were to take the proceeds from the sale of that property and reinvest it into, let's say, another property or a business here in Canada, then I won't have to pay that capital gain. Essentially, they'll allow me to defer it until a later date, until I actually realize that, take that gain and use it for personal use. So it begs the question, is this something that's actually good for the economy? Is it good for investment in Canada? Because that is essentially the way that it's being pitched, is that it will create rocket fuel for the economy. And this is being said especially in light of the tension between the US and Canada right now with tariffs and proposed tariffs. So there's certainly an eye on how do we make things more beneficial for the Canadian economy. Like a lot of policies coming out right now from both parties, is they're almost like proposals without a lot of clarity on exactly how they're going to execute these. So I think there's still some question marks around the efficacy of, is this really going to be rocket fuel for the Canadian economy? But what I can talk about in my context is I own a few rental properties, and would I be more likely to sell one off and reinvest that money into a different rental property if I knew that I didn't have to pay capital gains? The short answer is yes, absolutely. It makes way more sense. I think it would free up investors to sell businesses, sell properties. And the benefit, I think, is that, let's say a duplex, for example, may be freed up for a first-time home buyer to come in, buy it, live in half of it, rent out the other, while I can take some of my proceeds and invest it into possibly building a purpose-built rental property or a bigger multi-unit rental property. So from the investor standpoint, it just allows me to move my money more freely and more efficiently, which excites me, but hopefully it also creates opportunities downstream as well. This proposal is not too dissimilar from what they have in the United States, which is called a 1031 exchange. The difference is the 1031 is just for real estate. So if you sell an income-producing property and reinvest that money within a year into another income-producing property, you don't have to pay the capital gain. The difference here is that this is for all business. So you could be selling a business and restarting one. You could be selling a property. This could relate to a restaurant. It could relate to a farm, a rental property. It's much broader. And the purpose of that is to hopefully also create some reinvestment back into Canada. Again, I think the details are lacking on exactly how this is going to be executed. I mean, what qualifies exactly as a business or what qualifies as reinvestment into a business. But overall, I think the direction of that policy is good. I think it's good for the economy. It allows folks to move their money a little more freely, and they feel more free to operate here, which hopefully will bring more investment back into Canada, because in the short term, in the first year to 2 years, it's projected that it could cost the Canadian government around $10 billion in lost revenue from taxes on capital gains. So not only do you hope you're going to make that on reinvestment into the country, but you're going to make more than that over the long haul. And for right now, it's a policy that's just proposed for the short term. And if it is effective, the possibility of it staying on permanently is there as well. I think for the folks that are generally more geared towards a free market, they're going to find a policy like this more exciting versus some of the other proposed policies that we've seen in the past. The Liberal government under Trudeau, there was a change to the inclusion rate, meaning that if you had a capital gain above $250,000, they were now going to look at even more of that gain, which in turn meant you were going to pay more taxes, which is why we saw some folks trying to sell their properties off before a certain date in order to avoid paying a certain amount of tax. On top of that, it hasn't never been put forth as an exact policy, but there's certainly been lots of rumors about the possibility of a capital gain being charged on primary residences, which, as we know, the majority of Canadians' wealth is tied up in their primary residence. So overall, you can see kind of the direction that both parties head in or have a tendency to head in. And I think whether you're going to look at a policy like a capital gains deferral as favorable or not generally depends on how you look at the economy and socially how you lean as well, which direction you may see as more favorable. You know, for somebody who invests in real estate, I think it could be beneficial, and I think it could be beneficial for the affordability of real estate as a whole as well. I'd love for you to leave a comment below, shoot me a message, and I want to thank you for tuning in.